put government in charge of deciding what junk food is not, and so are we going to start categorizing which foods are actually food and which foods aren't food, and can you buy stuff from the deli, or does it have to be raw foods, or, I don't know if I want government making those decisions on, where should the sales tax be and not be. See, that's the ugly underbelly. It sounds great to take the sales tax on food. I totally agree with you.
Oh, what
Get rid of all taxes, right?
What about
That's
some?
that way. You enter into some pretty messy territory.
well, there are FDA has what is called a monopoly.
What about following the standard used for, say, food stamps to determine what does or does not qualify for that
At
tax
very
rate?
least, maybe, yeah.
Well, I'd like to get rid of the food stamp program. I used to work for the Department of Welfare, and there's so much food stamp fraud, it's unbelievable. And pretty much every felon that gets out of prison on probation, they're immediately put on food stamps, and I just don't think that's right either. I don't like the government getting involved in pretty much anything. I mean, I'm pretty much a pretty strong libertarian in that respect.
Well, in terms of, and speaking of which, there are certain private rating agencies. Didn't you talk about?
Well, I talked about certain private rating industries that that currently exist. There's the Better Business Bureau, there's Underwriters Laboratory, and the like that. And other ones I don't remember offhand, and other countries probably have different ones as well, where they rate areas where, in the case of the Underwriters Laboratory, electronics, your kitchen electronics, you probably find that underneath your laptops here today. But couldn't we have more, but in a free market, we probably have to see the same thing on food. We have that kind of system with restaurants nowadays too. It's the government ones are usually paid off, where the people who actually make money provide saying which restaurants are good or bad on the market tend to not do that as often. In other places, maybe not Idaho necessarily.
Okay, I'm fearing that we've drifted off of the
Oh yes, very much so.
Sorry.
off of the questions that we kind of had in mind. Looking at your website here, there's one of your jobs legislations things you point out is the Silver Gem Act.
Yeah, we're
I don't know what that
curious
is. Can you explain it, please?
Yeah, the Silver Gem Act was, it's a bill, and has a few different facets. One of them is to clean up a sludge pond in northern Idaho, where they have some toxic waste in a pond. There's a plastic liner. It's actually, the pond is owned by the EPA. It's owned by the government, but the liner that they originally built the pond with is not kosher, and the bill partially would address that issue in cleaning up that toxic waste from getting. The EPA is not managing appropriately, even though they're a federal agency, and supposedly the federal agencies do better than anybody else, but according to them. But it would also create mining jobs, and in northern Idaho, which we've been neglecting our mining industry for years, and I'm of the opinion that an economy should be diverse and well balanced, and then you should have a natural resource economy, and it should just expect everybody to build web pages or work at call centers, and or work as lawyers or doctors or whatever it is, whatever line it is that we've been told for years that we should do these kinds of jobs, not those kinds of jobs. I've done manual labor jobs, and I like them. And a lot of people like being miners. They like to get dirty, or they like to work in the timber industry. And
Well, how would it encourage these jobs?
I would encourage the jobs. Well, one of the things it would do is it would give some incentives, like to clean up to refining companies to clean up this sludge pond, and allow them to take a portion of the benefit of cleaning that up, and which is owned by the EPA now, so we don't have any. But the state of Idaho does have jurisdiction over whether it gets cleaned up or not. And then also, what we would do is we would give them tax credits, kind of like I railed against in the beginning, except it's not just for Turkey, it's for an entire industry, entire region, which has been hardest hit by some of our moves away from our natural resource economy. Idaho has more silver. Idaho is the center of the universe of silver. We're called the gem state, and Nevada is the silver state, but really that's a misnomer. Idaho has more silver than anywhere
Talk a little bit about the immigration bill that you have.
Yeah, so kind of, but my next question was about that. I was kind of wanting clarification exactly the immigration bill that's cited on your website. Is that like the Arizona law that's being that went through recently?
No, that's a different bill. That bill, it's like another Arizona immigration bill. The 1070 that Arizona just passed. Arizona has, as far as I know, a year-round legislature.
Mm-hmm.
Idaho decided to go home so that we could all start our normal job. Arizona kept on legislating and they did the 1070 bill, which says that Arizona local law enforcement can enforce federal law. I think that's a great idea, but on the other hand, the law in question here that was up in here in Idaho was a bill which would penalize businesses who were knowingly hiring illegal immigrants. And it was a great way to, even though I'm a small businessman, I don't want any more regulations on small businesses. I thought that it was a bill that would encourage self-enforcement and that only the most egregious offenders would probably be tossed their hands in the cookie jar, if you will. And so the people who testified against that were unfortunately some of our industries which rely, they believe that they can't get Americans to do the job. They rely on immigrant labor and so they testified against it, but I think it's pretty great and that we should expect employers to at least make a good faith effort, at least not to blatantly and intentionally hire illegal. My family, the reason why I'm passionate about this issue, and I don't buy the line that Americans won't do these jobs. I mean, there's a Representative Payne who he had a dairy farm for 13 years. Apparently, that wasn't a work that was too big for him to do. He was man enough to do it. And Senator Fulcher was raised on a dairy farm. My father worked on a dairy farm. Yeah, I don't know where we got the idea. I think it's propaganda that Americans won't do these jobs. You know, I personally like working with my hands, and I became a painting contractor after I went to an Ivy League university because I didn't want to work in an office. You know, they just don't want to work in a cubicle, and they like getting dirty and making an honest living. And I just flat out reject the idea that we all want to build web pages and work in call centers. I mean, that I'm not a robot, and I don't think all Americans are robots. So I think that we should honor Americans and allow them to work in some of these manual labor jobs again. So that's the idea behind the immigration bill.
All right, so.
I would agree with you that I find the concept that Americans won't do the jobs to be garbage. So, I mean, I worked on a dairy farm when I was younger also. So.
I was in the military myself, and I come from a long line of military people. Now, I do have a question about you. One of the things I knew coming in that you were a small business man, right?
Yeah, I have a painting contracting business here in Boise.
Now, one of my major curiosities is here, are you going to start trying to enact the legislation, with the exception of the immigration we just talked about, that will be more friendly to people starting their own businesses, or to at least allowing small businesses to stay open longer? Like say, repeal...
Well, yeah, that's a really great question. Here in Idaho, I don't know anybody who's a small business owner who hasn't had it's called the Industrial Commission, and what it does is it goes to people's doors, small businesses' doors, and it makes sure that they have workers' compensation insurance, whether they need it or not. And I know people who they don't have any employees, but you have certain government entities here in Idaho which have so much time on their hands, they're so well funded that they have nothing better to do than to go out and harass small businesses. And I definitely bring a chip on my shoulder against some of these government agencies who have nothing better to do than harass small businesses with paperwork until they just give up and decide that we also have an unemployment insurance problem here in Idaho, where we've got more people on unemployment than we've ever had before. We quickly drained in $100 million reserve balance here in Idaho, which was keeping our rates down in the unemployment tax.
I was told by someone who used to work in the Idaho State Legislature that the Idaho Department of Labor almost went bankrupt because of the amounts of checks they were writing in unemployment benefits. Is that true?
Oh yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, they're having to.
What's
they're
it
having to seriously, because they ran out of money. They ran out of their reserve fund. They had to jack the rates up about 3 times. So businesses that have 3 or 4 employees. I'm friends who has a lube manufacturing company here in Boise. He ships worldwide. He only has 3 or 4 employees, and he just paid almost $1,000 unemployment insurance. And if you know anything about small business, that's a heck of a lot of money because you can be. When I had 3 or 4 employees, I had to cut back a lot. But when I had 3 or 4 employees, I was paying maybe $90 a quarter, not 900. So that's not a tenfold increase in the rate, but there is an increase in the rate, and it's hurting the small business. They're paying more than they ever have before.
What is the plan of, if I may ask Lucas, what is the plan of action for the state of Idaho, or even Boise for that matter, when the unemployment benefits run out?
Well, the plan of action, when there's no more money, you just have to cut benefits. We pay a lot of money to people. We make up for like 2/3 of their normal pay. If we expect people to get jobs, we need to help. You know, if they're gonna, if business is going to pay into it, obviously we should get money out of it, but you can't keep paying when you don't have money.
True.
You would hope so anyways. I mean, California seems to...
live with as a small businessman, so.
True, and I will concede to that. What I was wondering is, what in depth, briefly in depth, what type of ideas would you put to the table to, once the unemployment benefits run out, put people to work, leading the nation in that regard to
Right.
get more people working?
Yeah, well, yeah. And the unemployment benefits right now, but people are still unemployed. Well, the only other, this is where we should be focusing in the first place. The stimulus money that Obama passed in 2009, a lot of that money was for unemployment. Yeah, I don't see how that helps people make jobs. That helps them stay unemployed longer, but and that's irrefutable. But what we need to do to get small businesses, and business in general, small, medium, and large businesses going in the state, in Idaho, is we need to make this an actual business-friendly tax environment. One of the things, if you look at a report called Rich State, Poor State, it's basically a report on the business climate and whether